Hello, Dr. Tony. How are you doing today? It's so nice to have you on the show.
Good, thank you. Pleased to be here.
Beautiful, beautiful, my man. And you see, Dr. Tony, I am quite excited to have you on the show today. And oftentimes, I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, I want to say thank you so very much, Dr. Tony, for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, some couple of months back, Doctor, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Dr. Tony, just recently I was on that same road, and this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes now, Dr. Tony, I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a beautiful experience that day. I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Dr. Tony that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show, because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your philosophies, your insight, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions, Doctor. These stuffs are beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Dr. Tony is doing. And not only me now, because I don't want to be selfish, and even with the audience. And here we are today with the incredible Dr. Tony. So thank you so very much for doing that to yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Dr. Tony, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Dr. Tony on the show today is for the sake of the audience. Say, Doctor, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Doctor, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Dr. Tony, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Dr. Tony got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Doctor, over to you.
All right, thanks. I'm originally from Montreal, went to school, did my graduate studies in the States, and that profoundly affected me in terms of becoming a psychologist. And one of my first experiences was working with Vietnam veterans. I was tasked with assessing them and treating them, and I did these interviews, and everybody would state the obvious, which was the war experiences, had a profound effect on them. But as a result of talking to them, especially when I was asking about life before going to war. And I sort of discovered, wow, these people already were in trouble. They were already had experienced lots of very difficult moments, some of them traumatic, and off to war they went. And so the idea, that was sort of the first, the planting of this idea of people come from somewhere, they have those experiences shape them, and they decide and influence who they are today and who they're going to be tomorrow. And so it had a big effect. And then when I started to work with patients, I was an expert in treating trauma. We would treat the trauma because the other person who did a book with me, we worked together, we went to the same school, we had the same mentor, so we were very much influenced by similar experiences. And we noticed that we would treat people with a specific trauma, a car accident or something, bad. And we would sort of fix that, treat it, and they'd be okay. And off they would go. And then a year or two or three, they'd come back and go, I don't understand what's happening. I had a moment at work. It was nothing. It was an argument with my boss, and my PTSD just lit up. It was perceived as traumatic when it wasn't. And so then that sort of made us curious as to how come the trauma, the trauma response continued, and we started to focus on, it's not just the event that matters, it's the perception of the themes in the events, the themes. So it's not a broken leg, it's powerlessness, it's helplessness, it's pain, it's dependent, it's hopeless, it's all these things. And so we began to move from treating the obvious trauma to treating those themes. And for us, not only did we do this clinically, we actually applied it personally. I like what you said in your introduction. Knowledge is important, and knowledge without action doesn't really go anywhere. Knowledge has to translate into action, action different from the past. And if you can do that, then you have a chance of having a different present. And so personally and professionally, we started to look at this, started to, treat patients this way. We would treat the helplessness, the hopelessness, and we all have sensitivities. We all have similar themes. And even if we have the same thing, helplessness, you're helpless for different reasons. I'm helpless for other reasons, and so treatment needs to be targeted towards that. And what happens is helplessness, you can see it across 5 different moments: a work moment, a home moment, a street moment. And the only thing that connects them are those themes. That's why it's powerful, because when you can manage that, then you're changing how you are in all these different situations. So that's a long answer, but I sorry, but it's
and that's a fantastic one. The fact that you are understanding these problems from their roots, that's really amazing. So there is this particular word I'm quite curious about. Are you ready for me, Doctor? All right. So he says, what is a reenactment and how does it show up in daily life? Got it?
Okay. So a reenactment is a specific pattern of brain, body, and mind responses to a specific situation. So if you have an argument, let's say with an employer, and in that argument, the way it went, you perceived, being shamed and humiliation. Being shamed and humiliation, the brain, the body, the mind will react in a very specific way. And so these are habits, and we go and we have them done to us many times over the course of a lifetime. And we all have reenactments, all of us. We have them every day. We just don't know. These are old habits. I just saw a paper recently. 65% of our behavior is our habits without consciousness. There's no awareness. There's nobody home. We go on automatic, and we do the same thing over and over again. Then we wonder, why do we make the same mistakes? Why am I in this fourth relationship and it's going the same way the other three went? Something's wrong. And what's wrong is we're shaped by these childhood experiences. They dictate how we act in the present. We have a reenactment. And then more importantly, we want to break the reenactment. And that's where, if you can identify, shame, treat shame, then you have a chance at breaking it. So yeah, you're right. You said the right word earlier. It's the roots. We try to treat the roots, So in the present, I see a lot of patients who are undergoing bariatric surgery. Those patients are very overweight, and they do a surgical procedure to help manage their weight. They come and they think the problem is overeating, Elisha. The problem is they've been abused, they've been mistreated, they're not seen, they're treated differently because they're overweight, they're made fun of. These are the problems. It's not the overweight, it's a symptom. And so we try to get to the cause, and so it's a reenactment, it's a way of reacting, and then we try to break the reenactment.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's a great one. I feel like I am not just listening to a doctor, but also a lecturer. You're such a great explainer. Okay, so what made you realize that there is a bigger pattern behind people's struggles? Can you talk to us more about
Oh,
that?
we froze? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Okay, I'll say that again. So I said, what made you realize that there is a bigger pattern behind people's struggles? I want you to talk more on that.
Experience. It's just sort of experience. You see people every day. They come in. It's storytelling. It's storytelling. And the problem is they come in and you ask them, why are you here? And they'll say something like, because my life is horrible. Oh, why? And they'll go with the obvious on the surface. But then when you talk to them and you ask, and if they were beaten as a kid, if they didn't have any food as a kid, if parents weren't present, or one of the parents had a mental health problem or a drinking problem, or, so these things make it obvious that, when you see someone at 30 or 40, that's not where life started. And life started, and if you want to understand, you have to understand all of that. It's not that it helps me, it helps them. So when you go to them, this moment of shame and humiliation, what does that remind you in the past? When did you ever feel like this? Then they go, oh man, this takes me back to when I was a kid. When my dad would get upset at me and he'd put me in my bedroom and turn the light off and, and so on, and so those were the roots. And when they go, oh, they just think the problem is here. But when they understand their roots, it helps them to identify the enemy, if you want. It helps them to identify what needs to be addressed. And they're more willing to identify it if they understand that past is shaping everything they're doing in the present.
I got that. Okay, so for someone who feels stuck, what is one powerful first step they can take?
Yeah, first, awareness. You have to be aware. You have to know you even have a problem. You have to know that in this moment, what's wrong? I don't know what's wrong, but I feel bad. I don't feel good. I feel like something was done to me, And so awareness that you're in a moment, starts there. And, what can help with awareness is meditation, prayer, exercising, journaling. These are all things that therapy, conversations, so awareness is first. And then once you're aware and you go, oh, something happened, then you got to ask yourself, not just what happened, but what theme got triggered? Was it abandonment? Was it loss? And so if you go, oh, this is abandonment. I feel, no one's here for me. That reminds me of my childhood. Okay, so now we've identified the abandonment. Then the idea is identify a a strategy to address the abandonment. Most people, when they feel abandoned, the habitual response would be to go somewhere and sit in it and not say anything. So breaking the reenactment, getting unstuck, would be do something different today. Anything, as long as it's different than what you would usually have done. So if you would go quiet and feel sad and hide out in a room or go drinking, by yourself or, all these bad responses, breaking the reenactment would give you a relief. Find your voice. Find your voice. That's one of the best strategies, is to find your voice. But it's scary because a lot of people who have a hard time finding their voice is because they're scared. And they're scared because of the way they've been treated in the past. They're afraid of bullies. They're afraid of perpetrators. They're afraid of all those. And so it's not an easy task. But when they find their voice, then they have a chance at changing, their reaction. And because they change their reaction, you have a better sense of empowerment. Some strength that comes from that. And if you can do it this time, you can do it tomorrow. And if you can do it tomorrow, so you're creating a new habit. So instead of avoiding, approach, confront. Almost always approaching is the way to go.
Instead of avoiding, approach and confront. Wow, I got that. So we have just one more to go, okay? So, we spoke about reenactment already. So what is the reenactment decision matrix and how does it help?
Yeah, okay. So it kind of gets back to just the question you asked me. How do you change this? Think of it this way, a graph. And on one line, you have awareness. No awareness to total awareness. And the other line that crosses it is you go from no action to action. You do nothing or you do something, okay? And the bottom line is the more aware you are, that's why aware is number one. It's the most important thing, because if you're not aware, you can't do this. So it starts with awareness, and then you start to think of what your plan's going to be. If you're going to, and there's like 4 boxes. Each box has a different outcome. And so if you're aware and you do nothing, which is what you've always done, that's a reenactment. All right. If you don't do anything and you don't even know you're doing nothing, nobody's home and you're not aware, you're just being passive, that's a reenactment. In the other box is if you do something that's different, go up to someone and say, every time, when you come home at night, you don't talk to me. It makes me feel like, you're not present. You're abandoning me. All right. And saying that to a partner, let's say, that would be breaking the reenactment. Here's another box. Sometimes not reacting is breaking the reenactment. If it's been your job to always attend to everybody's needs and never be able to say no, that's a reenactment. And in this case, if someone says, I've had enough, I don't want to just keep doing it, I keep getting used and abused, the question is, do this for me. And you go, no, I'm not doing it. You're not acting on something, but it's an action. You're refusing to subject yourself to being mistreated. That is breaking the reenactment.
Wow. This is so beautiful to know. Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
What an insightful information. So to bring this to an end, Dr. Tony, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, or even ask you questions, or open your services or programs, how can that be possible?
Sure. First, we have a book that's coming out October 14. And the title of that book is Reenactments, Breaking Behavior Patterns That Keep You Stuck in Trauma, Stress, and Everyday Life. We have a website, and I can be reached at Tony Iezzi, IEZZI, .com. And so on that website, there's stuff in terms of the book, but there's all kinds of educational material. There's a newsletter, there'll be videos, and the the plan is to ultimately just sort of roll this out. And I hope, depending on interest, I know that what I do clinically is powerful. And I know that, and part of the reason I did a book is the patients wanted a book. They wanted something to hold in their hands. Otherwise they're memorizing. That's why some of the stuff is complicated, and I'm trying to explain it to you. It's not easy to hear all of that and make it work for you. So the book was for them. And so maybe people will be interested in attending workshops, and then they could do this live with us presenting, and give them some examples, because the best examples, I give you examples, but the best examples is you telling me your story, and my helping that person. Okay, what's going on here? What do you feel? What does this make you feel? What does this remind you of? And so you take them through the process. But I should tell you, early on, people reacted to the word reenactments and sort of like, what? What are you talking about? Because nobody sees shame, when they look at a moment. They don't see it. They see the person, talking badly, to them. That they see, but they don't attach these other themes. But we are all defined by these themes. Think of your 5, your 6, your 7, and your a parent looks at you a certain way. You just know it's bad. They don't have to say a word, but the problem is, what word do they attach? And so this is what you would help them do. So it's the fun thing for me is I do this every day. So I see the power of this, and when patients sort of get it, then they have a motivation that's higher than usual to go after it, Oh, and I should be clear. This stuff I'm talking about, this isn't like, you read a book and your life has changed, like this isn't you go to a workshop and you do the workshop and, you're a new person. This is a book that is a plan that guides you for the rest of your life. It's a life plan, right? You've been 30 years a certain way, 40 years a certain way. You're not going to change that in 6 months. So all this stuff of 5 steps to this and 12 steps to that and 3 steps to that, a lot of that is nice, but it's not honest. And that, the challenge for all of us is to sustain the proper behavior for a lifetime. Sustain. We all tend to drift off. That's human beings. We drift off. We go back to old habits. We do things that are not good for us. So it's a life plan. So the website would have all that.
Beautiful. So can you repeat your website once more?
Sure. Tony, TonyIezzi .com.
Beautiful. So that's going to be the end of the show, Dr. Tony. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this wonderful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.